Welcome everyone. I'm Deepak Ashwani, and along with me is Vibha, who would be also moderating this session with me. So, welcome again, and Vibha, over to you. If you can hear me, please let's get started.
Welcome everyone. Good evening. My name is Vibha Sachdev and I live in Gurgaon. So I have a textile and craft design background and I've been doing some amount of waste management and working with Daily Dump. So sustainability and environment and all of that has been my core interest for as long as I remember. Um, So I had actually heard Deepak on a Bhumija webinar where we was talking about food forests and growing them um, and about his other projects. I think one of them was in Karnal. And I have had this dream for a very long time of having a homestead and living in the hills and, you know, the charmed life. Of growing your own food and living off the grid and having your own, you know, self-sustained permaculture-based farm. But so because I can't move immediately, I decided to get in touch with other farming communities in Gurgaon, and so that it doesn't really stay just a dream in the future, in the unknown future, and you know. So a lot of them, for me, it was very expensive to be able to pay that kind of amount for 6 months to grow my own vegetables and fruits. And also some of the others I met had very different goals. For example, someone had the land but wanted to kind of build a club and not necessarily, a natural food forest. And so others who had met didn't own the land, so they didn't want to kind of do anything for the longer term. They didn't want to kind of grow things or build infrastructure that would not get them immediate returns. So everyone had different goals. So I was, as I went along, I was realizing that, probably the only option to see my dreams become a reality would be to have my own piece of land where I'd have the freedom to, have clean energy, do my rainwater harvesting, or even my craft projects with the local villagers, and stuff like that I enjoy doing. So that's when I got talking to Deepak. I actually sent him a message saying, I want to find a land somewhere in the hills, and could you help me compare prices? And he said, I have no knowledge about prices. I can connect you with people where you don't own the land, but you still, can realize your dream of having a food forest and growing your own food and doing the other things. So, and he said, because there are other people asking me the same questions, let's do a Zoom talk and try and answer everybody's questions. So Deepak is an environment management graduate from Denmark. He helps people and organizations to unleash best of their potential and to create holistic living experience. He has initiated many award-winning initiatives in several countries, one of which is Edible Forest, whose mission is to create access to a food forest. So that's your brief introduction. And so can we start with the very basic question, what is a food forest? So that everybody is clear and is on the same page.
Sure, Vibha. Thanks a lot for the introduction. And welcome again, everyone. And let's get started with the food forest. It's a buzzword these days coming out. especially people are following a permaculture, and actually many new people are getting confused what is going on. So a food forest is defined as a forest with the intention of growing food by mimicking natural ecosystem. That means that a food forest will look totally different if it is grown in Kerala or in Rajasthan or in Himachal Pradesh or in Northeast India, because it is mimicking the local natural ecosystem. So if in your local natural ecosystem, local natural ecosystem means untouched virgin land. That's what it means. It could be old virgin forest or a piece of land that is not being touched due to any reason. It's the top of the hill or next to the train lines also sometimes, many times. So in that place, whatever is the density of the trees, whatever is the height of the trees, whatever are the number of layers present, there are 7 layers in a food forest according to the height: canopy layer and sub-canopy layer and grass layer and underground layer and crawlers and climbers. Like these, there are 7 layers. So if all 7 are present in your nearby local forest, that means you can also design a ecosystem with all 7 layers, and all the 7 can be productive. They can grow food. Now, a myth about food forest is that a food forest only has edibles, like things that we consume. That's not true. A food forest has productive trees and system trees. It's a mix of both. Like in your home, you need someone to clean your house or to cook for you or to take care of your, driving or these washing, these activities. Those become your system, and so that you focus on your produce, your work. So in the same way, in a food forest, a fruit bearing or edible becomes a productive tree or productive vegetables or crawlers or climbers. Along with that, we need system trees. System trees are the one which gives mulch or nitrogen, or they attract insects, they attract birds. They are one way or another benefiting the system. Because of that, the production increases. So that's the way food forest is defined and is seen. It's totally opposite to the factory farming. In factory farming, you clear everything. You prefer plain land. Here, no forest has a plain land. So here you prefer you use slopes, because you work with nature. You use the nature's sun, wind, direction. The insects are controlled by other insects. So you use nature in food forest so that you don't fight against nature. You don't put your energy to design to force the production. The production happens on its own, the way it happens in nature. So that's a brief about food forest. And yeah, Vibha, what next? What next you want to ask?
So I was saying that you said something about system trees and food trees. So aren't all trees system trees in a sense, because all of them help with microbes and insect life and bird life and supporting each other. That's what I understand.
Yes, you are right, Vibha. Exactly. Technically, that's true. That all trees help bringing birds or give mulch or provide bacteria, fungi under the roots. That's true.
Yeah.
But practically, what happens is that people tend to only focus on fruit trees. Like they just tend to grow only mangoes or mango, papaya, banana, like only fruit trees. And that actually, one way or another, unintentionally ends up into a plantation or a factory farm. That is the reason, for practical purposes, to make people aware, to make people knowledgeable, the importance of non-fruit bearing trees. We classify them into system trees and fruit trees. Otherwise, technically, you are right. That's the way it is.
Yes. So then it's obvious that you need a piece of land to grow system trees or food trees, anything. So So how can you access the food forest without owning the land, as you've been saying?
Yes, I actually never suggest anyone to buy the land, at least those who don't have the land or don't have easy connections to get the land. I don't suggest them except some exceptional cases, which we can talk later. And the reason for that is you need to understand holistic picture. And to make that understand, I'll give an analogy of cars. So what actually happened in about 20, 30 years ago, we made some highway. There were only few roads. Have you ever wondered that how did we manage without Google Maps and all this technology? Because there were only few roads, and there were only few cars also. And we just asked people and we just went from one place to another. So it was pretty much straightforward and simple. But cars, slowly, it became aspiration. The middle class and lower middle class, they started seeing that as something, as a status symbol. And it's a lot in North India, at least. So once it became aspiration, slowly, people who are managing in public transport and two-wheelers, they started to try to get cars. The banks gave easy loans because they saw people's interest in cars. Bank gave easy loans, and slowly, there were more cars on the street. Now the pressure is on the roads. The roads are crowded. The traffic increased. The traffic jam increased. Pollution increased. Resource consumption increased. Now the government is worried. The cities are getting congested. Even the small towns and the villages where there are train lines, where there are you have to stop the road when the train comes. There was a congestion there. Now city under the pressure, the road department under the pressure, they started widening the road. They started making flyovers, underbridge, and that resulted into deforestation. We slowly realized as a society that we are kind of ending up in a mess, in a so-called meshy ground where whatever we try, we are just getting trapped and trapped. It's a spiral. It's a downward spiral. Then what happened is that some smart people, smart startups, they came up with carpooling ideas, and slowly here and there carpooling culture started. In Europe it became common in many places, and then afterwards out of nowhere Uber, Ola types of systems comes in when we had better quality of internet, and we were able to get real-time information on cars movement. What they did is they capitalized on people have the cars, and the riders just need to get connected to the people who need the ride, people who can offer the ride. So when that happened, slowly now with the advancement of automated cars and solar driven cars, US has predicted that car ownership will be obsolete, will be dead in coming 10 years. And we people who have used Uber and Ola, we have realized that it does not matter. The car ownership does not matter, which anyway has resulted into higher maintenance costs and higher expenses. And that means that people started running behind more paying jobs, one of the reason, rather than doing things meaningful for them. So people have slowly realized that it's the access, it's a transit from A to B that's what matters to them rather than ownership. Personally, me and my parents also don't own the car, because on just one phone call we can bring any taxi, and in cities we can manage with Uber and Ola. So we had no reason to own the car. Uh, that's the same story, and slowly there will be a culture where car ownership will be seen as backward. It will be seen as you are not caring about the environment. Uh, it will be seen as out of the fashion, and that's the time that is coming. So that's the similar story of land ownership. We are in the early stage of land ownership, where people do have land, and on the other hand other people do need access to land, but everyone is trying to have their own car, have their own piece of land, just for the sake of ego, or for the sake of saying that I own this land and I can do anything whatever I want. But actually all of us, including the landowners, we actually don't need the land. What we need is the access to food forest, the benefits coming out of the land, the end result. That's what we care for. And if we care for that, why don't directly jump to that? Why don't find ways directly going into that direction rather than going through the hassle, which we all know, we all go through, particularly in countries where population density is high, like India. We have a lot of harassment for registering the land, and there is a lot of cheating in this area, as you all know. And even if you own the land, this is a myth, this is a misconception, that people think that owning the land is winning half of the battle. That's totally not true. That's the battle not even started, because the actual battle is a mental battle to convince the villagers that they are happy, they will welcome you as an outsider. Now you can of course say that, okay, I will go and build a strong boundary and make my own island there. Of course, most people try to do that. But if there is no integration, then the expense will increase. It's not very resilient whenever natural disaster hit, or even if in normal situations, whenever you need to sell things, people within your community are not supportive to you. Then how can you gain trust of the consumers coming from city outside, far away from 20-30 kilometers? So it's a very much outside in approach. That means you as an outsider try to fit in to a village, a culture that was already existing. But there are ways where you can try inside out approach, where you straight away become part of inside by one way or another, which we will discuss later in this call. And from there, your significance, your work is spreading out towards outside, towards your family, your community, your people who are visiting your land, then the villagers, and then the nearby town, and things like those. So that is the reason I do not recommend, because it's unnecessary uh, pain for each segment. Now, to classify further, to help you further to understand the problems, there are three sets of people in the world, as well as in this group, those who are trying to create food forest or wants to live in a food forest. Number one are consumers, or so-called city people, who are frustrated from the city life or pollution or lack of organic food, and they just want ownership of land for the peace of their mind and air pollution-free, peaceful atmosphere to live, or just to access the food. That's the first category, and a lot of us in this call are from that category. Number two are the landowners. Now, landowners can be either in a suburban area or a villager, those who own the land. They own the land, but they also have a lot of troubles. And number three are the people who are actively wants to practice their passion or skills. For example, nature enthusiasts or food forest experts or natural building people or organic clothing people or natural colors. People who need, they are young and they are full of passion. They just need like-minded club, like-minded group, like-minded family to practice their skills. So this is the third category. They don't care about if they are living in their own land or someone else's land. They are very clear that they are very focused that they want to practice their skills and contribute. And in return, they want to live in a peaceful, natural place. Now, starting with number one, the consumers, the city people. The challenge with them is, first of all, the benefit that they have is that they are free right now. They can be associated with any piece of land, or they can roam, they can travel, because they don't have something bounding them, such as land. But the challenge that they have is that they need a place to practice their interest. They need a place to implement their ideas, and also access either organic food or natural house, whatever they wish for. Moving to landowners. uh, landowners, we think that getting a land is everything, but you go and interview a landowner, then you'll get to know what are the challenges that they are facing. Now, being a landowner, number one, it drains out your money and energy in that particular place. You are bounded. You are like, you are tied with a rope to that place. You can't literally leave that place for longer time. Uh, you have to continuously keep your team motivated if you are a landowner, whatever is your team. Um, but the benefit is that they have at least a piece of land to do whatever they wish to do, the ideas they. But the challenge is that they don't get enough ideas because they get stuck in one particular way of thinking. That's the reason many of the farmers are getting stuck in the way they were doing farming since ages. And the food forest is only adopted by people who are coming new into this sector or returning back from city, at least as of now. And it makes sense also because it's something that requires some little bit of risk taking from the society point of view, not from a nature point of view, because that's the way things happen in nature. But from society point of view, some risk taking has to be done, new experiments have to be done. So that a landowner cannot do. It's only the people who don't have land and who have luxury of time and resources to conduct those experiments can only do that. Uh, so these are the challenges and advantages of landowner. Third part, people who wants to actively practice, they are passionate people. Their advantage is passion and skills. They just want to drive their passion, their energy into one direction, something useful for community, for environment, for society, for a farmer. So this is their advantage. But their disadvantage is that they might end up into a job if they don't find a way to channelize their energy, a job that they don't like. They might again end up into a city and then slowly become a non-ownership landowner into a city, and their dream just stays a dream. And many of you can correlate that you were passionate about something in your 20s, 24, 25, and slowly it dried out when you moved to the city and just continued a job for the sake of living expenses. So this is their challenges and advantages. Now, a wonderful community can only be formed by Tan Man Dhan contribution. Tan is a physical labor, someone putting a physical labor. Man is the ideas that are put there, innovative new ideas to practice the food forest, to sell the produce, or to have ideas that can bring people there by other means like alternative school, meditation, uh, trainings, uh, education purpose for farmers or for school children, things like those. Uh, or just helping the landowner with accounting, marketing, things like those. These are all ideas. These are all people with man. And dhan are the people who are contributing the land or the finances to make things happen in reality, like uh, to put the finances to purchase something or to buy the plants or equipments to move things there. So ideally, these three things has to be present. It doesn't matter how many members are there. It doesn't matter one member is contributing only in tan or man or dhan, but ideally one member contributes more than one thing. So ideally, as a group, as a whole, we need these three things to be present. Once you have these three things in present, it really doesn't matter who owns the land and who doesn't. Actually, everyone benefits. And in my experience, those landowners, there are many kind-hearted landowners, most of them, they never kick people out. They always welcome people who are there with this philosophy. But of course, this only happens when the landowner is also in the mindset that my land is not just my land. It's a community's ownership. It's the sense of ownership is with everyone who's contributing, even for 2 days, even for a day, even sitting remotely in a city and then helping for marketing or accounting or reducing costs, whatever way. So this belongs to those, to every one of those, including animals. So ideally, those type of people, that type of mindset, attracts people who are not owning the land, and then a beautiful community is formed. Does that make clear, Vibha?
A lot of it does resonate, especially with the car analogy. I've seen a lot of my friends give up their cars and, just depend on cabs. So yeah, but still, I mean, I still have those questions. And what you say about land, people with the mindset that the land belongs to everyone, even if someone has worked for a few days. Where do you find those kind of people? I don't know. Maybe they're just very difficult to find. Anyway, so but what if I want to kind of build a naturally constructed, with natural materials, a home there, and if I want to, for a longer term, work with the community on local crafts, for example, or make products from the produce I'm growing, how does that get built into this model? And what are the ways that we can access the food forest without owning it? So how do you kind of, include all these things in this model where there's no ownership?
Okay. Yes, so let's move on. Once it's clear, first is to create that mindset, the mentality that I am open. I'm not going to waste time into looking into the land. And I'm not saying that you don't go that in future in that direction. My recommendation is to get started without looking for a land, because it's a lot of waste of time. It consumes a lot of your energy, and then you never know you made a right choice or not, because a land dispute can only comes after you have bought, after you have paid your first installment. Then only things pops up. Oh, this has a dispute, and this the water is not there, and whatever, there is a fight there in family members for this patch of land, and then you bought 10 acres, and then you have to sacrifice 2 acres and things like those. And city people, we don't want to get indulged into court and lawyer and paperwork and all that, because we come with so much of motivation. I'm saying city people, but I mean anyone who is looking for land, consumers, non-ownership land people. So we come with a lot of motivation that we want to practice our ideas, like Vibha has been saying. Someone wants to have their natural building in the food forest or crafts, and all that motivation is drained out into logistics effort, into figuring it out, whom to pay, how much, when, and it takes 2-3 years to find an ideal land, ideal place, and you never know if you made a right choice. So rather going in that direction, let's just not go in that direction. So then what are the choices? That's what Vibha has asked. First of all, she said, how do you find those like-minded people? Now for that, I'd like to announce a feature that is soon going to be launched by Edible Forest. What we have done is, in our website, we'll be soon launching a feature called Food Forest Circles. What does it mean is that anyone who wants to create a food forest can create a virtual food forest circle. That means it does not exist, but in future you want to have a food forest there. So you are so motivated, you initiate a food forest in Jaipur, and other people in Jaipur or around that area who are looking to create food forests, they virtually join that group, and then you patch up together, and then you come to WhatsApp or you meet in person, and then you find a alignment, and then you proceed further in multiple ways, which I am going to explain soon. And another, in the same feature, another category that you can do is that you can create an existing food forest circle. So there are two, a green one would be existing food forest circle, and orange one will be virtual food forest circle. So in existing means that you are either a landowner or you have partnered with someone to create a food forest, and then you literally initiated, like you are actively working on day-to-day basis to create a food forest there. It doesn't matter at what stage it is. It's a plain, clean land, just transition from the commercial farming to food forest. It doesn't matter. But at least in the web page, you're giving a message like, okay, next to Hyderabad, here I have started creating a food forest. So people who would join that, they will get the surety like, okay, food forest has started. If they find themselves aligned with that, they will join that group in the terms that you will discuss together. So this is the way. This is just to answer you about how to find your tribe. This is just our humble effort to find your tribe. Of course, through your own WhatsApp groups, through your own networking, you will rather, I would suggest rather you spend energy in finding those like-minded people in your city. Go and attend some webinars, workshops, events in your own city or area. Rather than having meetings with property dealers and visiting the site. It's much more fun being with like-minded people rather than just being harassed by some smart property dealers. And I'm not saying that all of us will have a bad experience, but the chances are high in that direction, especially when you haven't done land search or buying land in your life ever before. Now, apart from this, our non-profit is also going to initiate 100 holistic living tribes. We call it yoga tribes because our non-profit name is Yoga Foundation. In these yoga tribes, it will be holistic living. That means all the basic needs, roti kapda makan, food, clothing, house and education, alternative school, will be nature driven, like the way things happen in nature. So as much as possible, to be practical, of course there will be here and there where people at different stages will compromise, but as much as possible. So these 100 places will be our hubs where you can go and join in and straight away practice your skills and your passion rather than looking for land. These are the open mind, open heart people who actively look for people to come on board. And we have already initiated 6 or 7 of them. So that's another humble effort that we are doing in this direction. Now coming to the different ways that Vibha asked, like, okay, if one is not buying land, then what else I can do? Of course, you should find like-minded people. But once you have found like-minded people, then what to do? I have 5 different ways to suggest you instead of buying the land. Of course, you can put buying the land as a 6th way, but at least as of now, I have 5 ways for you. Number 1 is what I call farmer surety model or farmer's assurance model. Now, as you know that farmers, or any landowner, when they are unable to use the land because they are either working or they have too much to do or they are alone, they are able to handle only few acres, they give their land on contract to other farmers, other landless people. And contract fees usually vary from state to state, place to place. But let's say it is 50,000 rupees per year per acre. Yeah. Now this is something that farmer told me. That means this model is coming from the heart of farmer. And I have tested with multiple farmers to make sure it is bulletproof. What farmers are saying is that a group of non-land owners or consumers or city people come together and pay us in advance 50,000 rupees in advance for 1 year. That means that literally that farmer has got that money in advance. They are going to lease that land to you. Then after paying that 50,000 rupees, whatever way the consumers want us to produce food, we will produce the food. The farmer will put all the hard work there. And after that, whatever produce comes, whatever the consumers want to take for their home, household consumption, they take it. Whatever surplus is there, they sell it together and share the profit 50-50. That is the bulletproof model coming from farmers. It's a win-win model. Farmers just need their assurity, their assurance, they got the assurance. Consumers need organic food, and some of you can become so-called, expert or at least aware of food forest ways. You can slowly train them in food forest, and you give assurity that even if nothing is produced, that's fine. It's our loss. We lost 50,000, but you should not compromise with our technique. You should always mulch. You should create 7 layers. You should combine different fruits and vegetables. We need produce every month rather than having just grains and rice and lentils. So in this way, farmers are assured, consumers are assured, and the surplus is shared fairly between each of you. You create a relation with farmer, and then slowly you can go into shared ownership model or just continue like this. So this is something that's very quick to start, and all you need is just assurance or trust for the farmer with you that you can get with your network in your city by just attending some organic farming webinars or seminars or events, or just contact your local NGO who promotes organic farming. Number 2, let this group come together, a group of like-minded people, and work on any piece of public land, which is either a piece of land within a community, within the society complex, or is a part of a temple, or it's a government land. For example, Ram Bagh, Company Bagh, we are working in such example in Amritsar. You go and approach the government that we'll take care of this land, we'll manage, which is other way degraded or people are just throwing the waste there. And you start producing fruits and vegetables there. You enclose it, you make a life fence around it, and you work together. So that's another way city people can green the city as well as work together right next to their home. Number 3, you join a landowner friend. So rather than finding a like-minded group, all you find is a like-minded landowner. That person can be a farmer or just your friend who owns a land. You make terms together, and then you start working on it together for a long term to produce food forest over there. The moment each group member is aligned with the common mission, then there is no problem. And of course, divergence will come with time, but that's you can allocate someone's role, some member's role in the group to make sure that everyone is aligned with the mission. So this is very easy, and this is also I have experienced. At least the landowners that I am working with, they are so open-hearted, and they just give their produce for free for those who help them even little bit. Even if you have helped them adding few consumers or just reducing their expenses, they are so open-hearted for you. And they also welcome you to make a house, because it doesn't take so much of land to make a house there. You just have to agree on the terms to make the house there. Number 4 is a typical method. You come together and lease the land from someone, and then slowly bring the landowner on board. So it's not just typical lease and the owner can say anytime bye-bye, because of course food forest is a long-term investment. So you bring them on board and you say like, okay, for first few years we will make a financial assurance for your land, but if our idea works, then you have to come on board. The tree should never be cut. So you bring the landowner on board slowly. And number 5 is you collectively purchase the land and put that land on a non-profit name. Like you create a trust together, or a society or a non-profit together, and you buy the land on that non-profit name. So no one can claim like this is my 1 acre, this is my 2 acres. It's 4 or 5 people owning it together, and then you work there together, you make a home there as well, or natural craft, or whatever skills, passions, hobbies you have. Um, and the sixth option you can have always to have an individual land. But bear in mind, this is not something I'm recommending. Even if you have the land, you need people to work there, either for ideas or for money, or or to contribute money or to contribute the labor. You need people with skills there. So owning the land is not a solution. Owning the land is inviting, problems to be handled only by you. That's what it means, owning the land. You are able, the only situation where I suggest that you can purchase the land is where you are confident that your resources will be able to handle all the efforts and challenges that are going to arise to make your dream possible. And that stage can also come for you when you are practiced, when you are used to handling the land, how things work on the land, the challenges in first few years when you work with these 5 models. And then you can of course switch to owning the land, if of course your finances allow you. Otherwise, I would rather suggest to be simple, be flexible. In these methods, you have flexibility to exit anytime, of course, based on the terms that you have finalized with your group. So it's way more flexible than, it's literally like using Uber. Like, you don't own a car, but you just get transit quickly without worrying about the maintenance. Vibha, over to you. Got more clarity now?
Yes, so it does seem like a very practical option. You've obviously worked out a lot of the details and a lot of different aspects of it. But it will, of course, take some time to sink in. So, but do you want to answer a few other things before we take audience questions? Because it's 7:15 and. For example, very briefly, if you could explain, what if I change my mind and want to exit from the community? What could be the repercussions of doing that? And
yeah, sure. I can see, Vibha, I request everyone to write their questions in the chat, and so that we can start taking. We have 10-15 minutes more in this call. And I see Abhishek is requesting to rename Model 1. That's Farmers Assurance Model, where you pay the contract fee in advance to the farmer, and the surplus produced after everyone has consumed, its profit is shared, net profit is shared equally between the members and the farmer. So what if you exit? So before the exit part, actually there is a holistic governance that you have to understand. In this model, there is a self-governance, there is a self-management principles, which is actually way more effective than top-down hierarchy model. So in that self-governance, there are things like, conflict management, roles and responsibilities, what everyone is going to do. And of course, if a member wants to exit, what happens, at what condition they can exit. This is, I can guide someone because I work on these models day and night, but it would be way more effective if you focus your energy in finding like-minded people. You sit together, and I can tell you the way to make it happen. How to make it happen is that you sit in a circle without table, because you sit preferably on the ground in open nature. These are the things that allow you to get rid of your ego. And these are, by the way, all tested models. You can also test yourself. You conduct a meeting where table is in between, and there is a person sitting opposite to each other. There will be a feeling of A versus B, like either one of them dominates. On the other hand, you have a meeting outside in nature, sit downstairs in a circle without anything in between. It literally makes you humble and literally makes you egoless. So these things matter. So you sit down together, and then in a piece of paper, everyone writes what am I going to contribute? Number one, tan. Number two, man. Number three, dhan. What is my physical contribution? What is my mental, my ideas contribution, and what is my resource contribution? And everyone is supposed to do that, fold their paper, write their name, put it in the middle of the circle, and there is one facilitator that is picking one by one and then reading it and then making everyone getting clarity, and then someone clubbing everything together. So you are literally crowdsourcing, crowd pooling your resources, your network, your physical effort, your everything, so that your dream come together. And then collectively you form a mission statement, you form a purpose of you all coming together. Once that is achieved, then there are ways of conflict management and all that you can contact me later and I can write it down to you. So once that is done, then you also write like what I wish for. Like right now in the first slip you only wrote what do I contribute. Now you write what I wish to practice, what I wish to have. You can write, someone can only write, oh, I just need organic produce. Others can write organic produce plus a natural home. Others can write craft practice, pottery practice, whatever are your hobbies, skills. For whatever reason you are looking for land, you literally write that. Whatever are your passions. Now let's take things practically. Let's say someone wants fruits and some vegetables, and they also want to have a natural home in that area. Now to buy a land and create a natural home, first of all, it is 2-3 years of hassle. Secondly, if you are lucky, there is no dispute and all that. But the cost is usually, let's say you bought 4-5 acres at the cost of 30-40 lakh, 50 lakh, whatever. And then on top of that, you build a natural building home of 15-20 lakh. Your total cost comes out 70 lakh. It took 5 years with 3 years of, mental disturbance, unrest to you. And after that, if you are lucky, you get mental peace. Otherwise, you are still continue with the stress. Let's take another example. You clubbed with a like-minded landowner. You went there. You started contributing your skills. You started having vegetables there. You started taking fruit produce there after 1 year. And then you both got confidence on each other. You had trust. And you formed the terms that, okay, why don't I come and stay here and make a natural living house. I don't know for how long I'll live, but let's say I live 10, 15, 20 years. So you spend again 20 lakh or 15 lakh into building your natural house. You start living there. You agreed on some terms of maintenance, like, this is something that I contribute as a part of maintenance from my side because I'm accessing this road or whatever. Or that is in kind, you can contribute, like, okay, I don't contribute maintenance, but I come and work for 2 hours, 3 hours. It's something that you both decide. You all, like, you are happy and the landowner is happy and other members are happy. So you came to the terms together. So in this case, you got what you wanted in just 1.5 year. No stress at all. You started getting vegetables and fruits starting from day one. And even for staying, you were coming there time to time, once in every 2 months, 1 month, to stay there and feel the place. And then only you made a decision in 1 year, like, let me build a house. Now let's say you left that house, you have to leave that place for some reason, for family reason, for you got transferred or whatever reason. You have to leave that house after 10 years. Now you left that house, you have agreed on some terms that you can either, have some compensation back either from the landowner or from the person who will replace you. Let's say in worst case, you don't get any compensation. Still you are better off because your per year cost just came 1.5 lakh, no hassle, mental peace. And in after 10 years, you gain so much of knowledge, you experience the community. There is no way that wherever you go next, you don't live in a community. you're going to live in a similar setting, or you are going to find a similar setting, because you love the stress-free atmosphere of this Tan Man Dhan community. So that's how things work in this situation. I'll start reading questions one by one. Or Vibha, maybe you can help me to start reading questions one by one.
Mona Lisa is asking if you can share examples of edible forest project that you're running currently around us.
Yes. So Mona Lisa, the way we work is that we don't own the land, or we don't really go and take full charge of creating a food forest. We enable people to create food forests. That's why our mission statement says to create access to food forests rather than having ownership of food forests. So what we actually do is we find these like-minded people who wants to create the food forest, and then we connect them with the experts who are capable to help them, to consult them, to advise them to create the food forest. And our projects, these examples are already setting up in Ludhiana, Hisar, or it's actually technically in Bhiwani district, but near to Hisar, Karnal, and Sirohi in Rajasthan, Udaipur, Delhi, and near to Mukteshwar in Uttaranchal. And one is coming soon in Himachal Pradesh as well. And there is one more in Abohar, Hoshiarpur, Amritsar. So these are the places where things are happening. What is the ideal size for food forest? Well, a food forest needs 7 layers and at least canopy. So wherever 2 big canopy trees can stand, that space is required, and minimum is 1000 square feet. An ideal size is as much your resources can handle. So if you are a farmer in Australia and you are able to handle 200, 500 acres, go for it. If you are here and whatever resource land you are able to handle, remember, land is a money consuming, resource consuming, time consuming thing. So only indulge into the size which you are confidently able to handle it.
Dhairya is saying, request you to create a group of like-minded people. Excellent concept, Tan Man Dhan.
That's what we have been doing, and that's what we will keep on doing. Edible Forest and Edible Forest is an offshoot of Yoga Foundation, and Yoga Foundation purpose is to unleash best of your potential, which involves multiple other services like groups of natural building, natural colors, organic clothing, crafts, and also your inner transformation, inner growth, reconnecting you with nature. Things like those. Misfit University, university for all those who consider themselves misfit in the society, yoga tribes, and services, like providing services to a whole, transitioning the whole city landscape towards more greener and water management system. So these are all different features or offshoots that are going to come with yoga, and all we are doing is connecting people and creating these like-minded groups. So stay tuned, stay connected with your request, and then we'll be able to fit you wherever you want to.
Abhishek Thakur moved from Delhi to Manali during the lockdown and also resigned from my corporate job to pursue agroforestry. My question is, how do I work out on a model for the extreme cold climate?
Well, Abhishek, first of all, happy independence from the corporate job. One of my hobbies is to get people out from their job who feel themselves trapped there. Nothing against the people working in the job, but at least those who are frustrated or feel like wasting the time, I help them getting them out, and I always wish them happy Independence Day, the day they resign. Well done, Abhishek, and you have made perfect use of lockdown. You're working on agroforestry. First of all, I would suggest agroforestry is kind of like using the trees for the benefit of getting your crops yield. That's how I understand agroforestry. But the moment you understand the food forest, and that's the way nature makes the food, that's the way all animals eat. Before agriculture is just 10,000 years old, man-made way. All the tribes of Amazon or in India or wherever in Africa, they were living actually in food forests. Wherever humans were living, in 1-2 kilometer radius, there was food forest. Even now, Kerala is full of food forests. So I would recommend you to look into food forest, the way to create, and go in that direction. And how do you create an extreme cold climate? Well, people have created food forest in Europe, so there's no reason you can't, because you see a strong density of trees and forest next to you in Manali. That means you can also create that. All you have to do is do not force yourself putting all the species there. Just be mindful in putting the native species of system trees and productive trees. There are trees that are going to give cover from the cold, like they will protect the trees and the shrubs from the cold, and then underneath you can grow other productive species. So be mindful whatever is growing in your area, mulberry and all other local berries, local fruit trees, apricot, plum, things like those. Always focus on that and start with system trees first. Don't start with productive trees. Well, it depends on the quality of your land, but if it has tilled before, like you are saying it's agroforestry, then I'm imagining that you are tilling the land a lot before or even now. Then you need to put a lot of system trees like fig tree and all those local nitrogen giving species, legumes. Then you switch to, then you slowly keep on adding the fruit trees. Yeah.
So Ved has said how many such models exist. Can you tell us about any project, which you've already answered? You just spoke about it. Dhairya?
Yeah, Ved, just a second. Ved, to answer you, actually, the type of model that I am saying or suggesting has been existing since forever, since the humanity has existed. Actually, that's the way we have been living. It's just now in last, since industrial revolution, last 200, 300 years, we came into this mindset of owning everything. Like it should be mine and everything should be mine. I own the land and all that. So keep that in mind that the way to live peacefully, we have to live in a society where one person's motivation or resources are limited. We have to club with others. And to practically give you examples, a lot of religious institutions work like that, where you come and stay for whatever time and then you contribute whatever through your effort. Auroville is there in the south. In our ideas, in our models that we have been working with people, in Pathankot there is a food forest where a person returned back from Canada has joined and then working happily without owning the land. So in Karnal there are people, in Ludhiana there are people. So there are in our models, we always welcome people to come on board. Yes, Vibha, please move on.
Dhairya is saying living in a village and trying to develop a community-based food forest, edible food forest. How can I initiate that?
I guess that's what we have been talking in last 1 hour. But therefore, to summarize to you, form a like-minded group, and it can be 3 or 4 people only, and then get started. You will be the most motivating. You will be driving, and others will be there to help you for one thing or another. And then just get started. Why to wait? Get started with plantation, with for making a lake, making a pond, having a natural building there, motivating people. As the activities come, again, as I said before, start with system trees. Put more and more plants that are not producing roots but are going to help the soil and nitrogen and mulch and birds, things like those. Yeah.
Prashant is saying, how do we start growth in a food forest after the land has been found?
It depends on the land quality, the soil quality, and once if the soil is virgin, I mean, if
the farming has never happened there, then you can start with productive trees straight away. But the first thing that I usually do or I usually recommend is start with boundary trees. So once you move in, usually, boundary trees are the one that are going to protect you from animals and from other people, human, to enter. So start forming live fans there, so that once they grow up, they will give you mulch also for other part of the land to make it productive. So start from boundary trees and then put more system trees if the land has been farmed. If not, then you can straight away jump to productive trees along with planting system trees.
Surjit Singh ji, which plants we should grow on roadside highways, wastelands for generating a good income?
Good income, you have to do your local search, what is sold better in your area. Edible forest plantation database has a list of about 150 trees, and most of them are native to North India. Actually, it has actually, the list has started from North India perspective only. Now we are slowly adding other regions. So you can have a look there and then find the list of the trees uh, that you can that can give you income as well as benefit the soil as well.
Sarabjit, any such food forest eco community near Mumbai or in Mumbai, Maharashtra?
Yes, I am not working directly there, but my friends do have near to Mumbai. But our group, Edible Forest, is also going to work very soon. It just got stopped in last few months, but we are going to initiate talks with a person with the organization to start outside of Mumbai, uh, a food forest community. Yes. And one wadi is one example that you should definitely visit. Yeah, as Anshu mentioned.
Yeah. Anup Mishra, professionally, I'm a software engineer working in Noida based MNC. I'm frustrated with my professional life. I have land around 15 acres in my hometown near Gorakhpur. Please suggest if I can quit my job and start something from my hometown.
Well, yeah, Anup, you need some independence help. Surely, I love to help. It's one of my favorite hobby. Call me or send me personal message, and then we can chat further. But to give you a brief answer, it's not straightforward. That you jump. The motivation is clear in you. You have to look into your burn down time. That means like as much finances you have right now, how much time, how much uh, timeline you will be able to support yourself in considering all your expenses, considering that your expenses will also be reduced when you move to Gorakhpur. So once you have that clear, once you have some path clear, then you will be able to jump there. But don't get frustrated. There are many people like you. I have personally been through journey, so try to help as much as possible. And thanks to you, Vibha, for moderating this session. Thanks to all other team members, for Vinish to organize this call, and Manas for managing the time and all the documentation. My last message is borrowing words from my friend Anshu, who is also in this call, is that whatever I have suggested is you can think of it as a community ecology, because in nature that's how things work. In a forest, it's not like someone is owning a land, or a bird when they make the nest, when they choose the tree, or a group of honeybees when they choose a place. They don't own, they work in harmony with each other, and one thing is connected to another. And for sure, whatever one animal or one species do, it benefits all others. So that's how things should be, and that's how, to again re-emphasize on my terms that I've been using throughout this call, is to create a Tan Man Dhan community, which is much more fulfilling for you, much more stress-free. To create Tan Man Dhan, both the landowners have to be humble and change their wording. They have to present themselves in a way, verbally, by their body language that it's not their land, it's the nature's land. They are there for a time being as a custodian, and everyone who is coming with the right mindset, aligned with the mission, is welcome to access the benefits from that land. And the people who are coming, they have to get rid of the fear like, oh, if I put a hard work, the landowner is going to kick me out. That's not the way things work. Go and talk to the landowners. They are so humble. They are eagerly waiting for people like you. You know, you club with them. This is the way where a lot of farmers are going to transition to food forests. If they are left alone, then how can they take risk? You know, they are already trapped into a downward spiral of dealing with the challenges in the land. So we have to complement things that they can't do. So that's the appeal to all of you. So thanks again to everyone, and feel free to reach out by email or by WhatsApp message.